Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. 668 days lasts the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The New York Times released an article in which it says that Russian President Vladimir Putin has been sending signals through intermediaries since at least September that he is ready to agree to a ceasefire in the war of aggression against Ukraine, reports European Pravda. His offer includes freezing hostilities on the current contact line. The media claims to have learned this information from two former senior Russian officials close to the Kremlin, as well as US and international officials. US officials believe Putin had already made attempts to negotiate a ceasefire a year earlier, in the autumn of 2022, when Ukraine defeated the Russian forces in the northeast. At the same time, Putin indicated his satisfaction with the territories that Russia had captured and was ready for a truce, the newspaper's sources noted. However, Putin is now deploying fiery public rhetoric that Russia's goals in the war have not changed, while privately indicating his desire to declare victory and move on. Some US officials suggest that this may be a typical misleading attempt by the Kremlin and that it does not reflect Putin's genuine willingness to compromise. Former Russian officials add that Putin may well change his mind again if Russian troops gain momentum. US officials see a shift in Putin's stance, noting that he is no longer demanding the resignation of the Zelensky government. They claim that the ceasefire Putin is proposing would preserve a sovereign Ukraine with Kyiv as its capital, but leave Russia in control of nearly 20% of the Ukrainian territory it has managed to occupy. The ceasefire is viewed with skepticism by many in the West who believe Putin is rearming for a future attack. At the same time, Italy's defense minister Guido Crosetto has said that in addition to providing military assistance for Ukraine, its partners should start looking for a political solution to put an end to the war. Crosetto said that what existed before the war has to be restored, and what could not be done with weapons must be done in another way. The US Institute for the Study of War believes that the timing of Putin's reported interest in a ceasefire is more consistent with Russia's ongoing efforts to delay and discourage further Western military assistance to Ukraine, than with a serious interest in ending the war other than with a full Russian victory. The experts remind about similar Kremlin efforts to mislead Western policymakers into pressuring Ukraine to negotiate with Russia last winter, and effectively redirecting Western focus onto hypothetical negotiations, rather than ensuring that Ukraine has sufficient material before its spring-summer counteroffensive. The Kremlin is likely using back channels to achieve a similar effect amidst Western debates for further military aid to Ukraine. We would really appreciate if you could rate us, ideally with 5 stars, and leave a glowing review in the app where you are listening to this podcast: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others. This way more people would learn about the podcast and truth about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A scandal erupted in Ukraine when Channel 24's host Oleksiy Pachy left Ukraine to cover the recent EU summit which took place from December 14th to 15th and decided not to return home, reports Detector Media. The management of the TV channel said that they were, quote, shocked by Pachy's act and could not believe that he would do such a treacherous thing, unquote. They emphasized that the presenter framed his colleagues and cast a shadow on the reputation of journalists as a whole. The website also published an official position in which they condemned the behavior of their now ex-employee. Pachy himself wrote a post on Facebook where he said that it was a hard decision to make and that he worked for the benefit of Ukraine all this time and would not stop doing what he knows how to do and what can bring victory a little closer. He said that Ukraine needs more people-to-people work with Western societies, and that's why he decided to stay abroad. Pachy expected a negative reaction to his decision, but said that he decided to be honest with his audience. During martial law, which has been declared in Ukraine since the start of the full-scale Russian invasion, Ukrainian men who are fit for service are banned from leaving the country, even though sometimes they can receive special permits to travel for work reasons, but even then they are obliged to return. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We're a commercial initiative of just two people, and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.